Well, now at last we're into the final straight, the bleaching of the shirt. But before I do, let me just say that I've repaired some of the knots in this shirt. And the reason I've done that is because these were dark, dead knots, and I didn't trust the fact that when I bleached, these wouldn't show through and leave a sort of spotted effect. If this was a natural shirt with just leaving it as wood, I'd have probably left the knots alone. They're knots, that's what the tree is like. So I've repaired those, and I've made a separate lesson in which I'll deal with that altogether. So for the moment, we'll just get straight on with the bleaching. I'm going to use this 2-part wood bleach. We put part A on, leave it 20 minutes, then we put this part B on. Important thing is not to get these mixed. So I use separate containers for putting the bleach on. So I'm going to put A on at the moment, and I poured some into this container here, and we're going to keep that separate from the other. So when I put it on, I'm going to put it all over, but I'm not going to put it on the parts that we're going to either leave as natural wood, which is the label, or the actual hanger, which we're going to stain dark. So I've got a smaller brush, and I'm going to just very carefully go in here with that. Make sure I don't get it on there. So with that proviso, I shall just start covering this whole surface, all of it, with this part A. And generally speaking, you put it on quite liberally, and you can see immediately it's starting to darken the wood, and that's quite normal. That's quite normal. Make sure it goes up into all these parts up here, and down into the collar. And as I say, 20 minutes later, I'll come back and I'll put the part B on. And it might be that we need more than one coat. That's quite normal too, to get the full bleaching. And it might be that there's some bits of the wood, perhaps a knot, which is a little bit darker, that we have to add even more and be quite specific. So I'm going to do the back as well. So I'll take this right round the edge here. Well, it's half an hour later, and I think you can see it's got a very yellow colour. Not to worry, part B now, using a clean brush, exactly the same way, making sure we cover all the surfaces. And then I'm going to leave this overnight at least, and it might be that I have to put a second coat on, or even a third. You never really know. But I'll keep doing this until I get to the bleaching level that I want. Here's the shirt after a couple of passes with the bleach. I'm very happy with how it's gone. Where I'm looking from, it looks very much like wood. Perhaps from where you're looking, it's more painted, but certainly I can see the grain, I can see the knots and so on. So I'm very happy with that finish. I've covered the bleach, covered the wood surface now with a acrylic based satin varnish, the sort of used by for finishing oil paintings. The hanger, I've used a normal wood stain and given it a sort of darker colour. I like that sort of contrast. So with this all finished now, the last thing we need to do is fit in the buttons. So here are my finished buttons, and they've got the spigot on the back and nicely polished. So let's pick one. Put the rest in the keep safe box and fit it into a hole. You want to check it first, make sure it goes in, and if necessary enlarge the hole so it's a nice fit. I'm using a 2-part epoxy glue because it's a different material. If this was just wood, you could use a wood glue, obviously. So here's 2 parts, and I have to mix these together. Make sure they're well mixed. Then I would take a little bit of that and I make sure it goes in the hole. That's the normal way of working, is to put the glue into the hole so that when you push your spigot into the hole, that the glue is pushed into the hole and doesn't squeeze out. So give it a little turn, and there's the button. So here's the carving now finished and on my wall. It's a long journey, lots of details, lots of hard work, but what was very satisfying is that I had a couple of friends from the village call in last night, and they didn't even notice that it was a carving. I think they were wondering why I had a shirt hanging on the wall, which I guess is, at the end of the day, quite a compliment.